Alrighty, so today's video is going to be a fun one. maybe not. I decided to look at the topic of this House Bill 616 in the state of Ohio that many of its opponents are calling it the Don't Say Gay bill. There's a lot of opposition out there to this bill, and there's a lot of things being said. I thought we would take a moment on this video to look at the actual bill, and then I would give you my take on what the actual bill actually says. So buckle up. This should be a good one. Okay, so there's this House Bill 616 that is being labeled by a lot of people in our community as the Don't Say Gay bill. There's a lot of people coming out making statements about this bill, saying that it promotes hate and racism, that it's discriminatory, that it harms people of what's the word I'm looking for, from the LGBTQIA plus community, all that kind of stuff. I actually have a statement from the Columbus City Schools that I want to read this statement. Then we're going to look at the bill and we're going to see kind of what they're talking about here. So this is a combined statement from all these school people. It has a lot of signatures on it. It's really nicely done. I like the Mabel countertop that they used. So here's a statement on it. It says, earlier this week, the House introduced House Bill 616. A bill closely resembles the controversial legislation recently passed by Florida, regulating classroom discussion on sexual orientation, gender identity in schools. Recognizing the far-reaching effects of this proposed bill could have, including jeopardizing the safety of LGBTQIA students and staff, and prohibiting culturally responsive lessons, the Columbus City School Board of Education Superintendent Dr. Tarla Dixon and Columbus City Schools union leaders have issued the following statement to speak out against House Bill 616 and encourage leaders to do the same. I'm not going to read the entire thing. It's kind of long, but I just want to read enough for you to get the point. As leaders in Columbus City Schools, we stand united in opposition to the shameful and divisive House Bill 616, which aims to thoroughly undermine our ability to embrace and support all students fully. Like others we see cropping up around the country, this bill amounts to unprecedented regulation of curriculum and instruction in an unwarranted incursion into local control. It perpetuates hate and encourages intolerance in adults and has no place in education. Now, I'm not going to read the entire thing, but I just want to say, if the House has introduced a bill that perpetuates hate and encourages intolerance in adults, that sounds like it must be something that's really bad. Now, let's go to the actual bill. So the bill itself, I've scrolled down a little bit to the highlighted or underlined parts. These are the parts of the bill that change, because what this bill is, it appears to me, and I'm not super familiar with how the legislator works when it comes to education stuff, but there's stuff in this bill that mentions like, as stated in the 2003 bill and yada, yada, yada. This is it's like almost like an updated charter or updated list of rules that the state issues to the state school board, and that will dictate the curriculum and decisions made by school boards across the country or across the state of Ohio. So here's the first part that changed. This is section D. It says the school district board shall not select any textbook, instructional material, or academic material that promotes any divisive or inherently racist concepts described in whatever. Divisive or inherently racist concepts include all of the following: critical race theory, intersectional theory, the 1619 Project, diversity, equity, and inclusion learning outcomes, inherited racial guilt, or any of the concepts the State Board of Education defines as divisive or inherently racist, in accordance with the rules under Chapter 119. So this part of the bill is what the school board was addressing when it says it would thoroughly undermine our basis of students, unprecedented regulation to curriculum instruction, and unwanted incursion into local control. There was a line that I missed up there. Oh, right here, culturally responsive lessons. So the school board is saying that if you ban things like critical race theory, intersectional theory, the 1619 Project, inherited racial guilt, that you are prohibiting culturally responsive lessons. But what the state legislator is saying is that these things are divisive topics. And I tend to agree with that, because things like critical race theory, intersectionalism, the 1619 Project, those teach a lot of things that are not true and accurate. I don't believe that they are, what's the word they said here? Culturally responsive lessons. They're made up things, and we shouldn't be teaching our children made up things. And then this one down here, inherited racial guilt. I don't know. Do I have to explain that? Is that something that we need to be teaching our kids? That, and I the way I take this is telling people who are born white that they need to feel guilty for being white, that they need to apologize for the fact that they were born a certain way. If you ask me, that's something that's very divisive, and it's not something that is helpful, and it's not something that should be taught in schools. The funny thing is, if you scroll down in this a little bit, I don't have it, and I'll let you kind of look this up for yourself. If you look up Columbus City Schools House Bill 616, there's actually a paragraph down there where it says critical race theory is not even being taught by Columbus City Schools or any other school district in the state of Ohio. And they go on to like elaborate all these things. Okay, if it's not being taught, then why does it matter if the legislator is saying that you can't teach it? It kind of cracks me up. I don't understand why you're so upset about this. Now, the part where it gets down into the whole LGBTQIA plus community, where they say that it's harmful to members of that community and students and whatever, I went ahead and blew this part up for you. I copied it. I literally copy and pasted it from the bill just onto something that would have a little bit more contrast and will be a little bit easier for everyone to see. Now, the paragraph that I did not copy and paste is where it says, no school board shall, or these are prohibited from, I think that's the wording. It says, with respect to a student in any grade, kindergarten through 3, teach, use, or provide any curriculum or instructional material on sexual orientation or sexual identity. So what this bill does is it bans teachers from teaching students kindergarten through 3rd grade about sexual orientation and sexual identity. I have kids myself. I have a 2nd grader and a 4th grader. I can tell you that they're already a little bit confused. They're just barely starting to learn about, sexual attraction. And it's not even sexual at this point. It's just being attracted to members of the opposite sex. They kind of play around with who they like and who they don't like. They're not quite ready to be taught these kinds of things, certainly in my opinion. And I'm not alone in sharing that opinion. So what this is saying is that the school board is prohibited from basically teaching sexual education type courses to kids from kindergarten to 3rd grade. I don't understand how that is something that would discriminate against anybody. It's not something that I was taught up until when I was in 3rd grade. I think it was maybe 6th grade, but even like junior high before I had any formal sexual education training. And I think I turned out okay. I learned how to have kids on my own. I don't know. I don't think it's super important to teach kids about sex that should not be sexually active or any of that kind of stuff. And I don't understand why people are so upset that we're banning them from teaching such young children such things. Now we'll go on to the next paragraph. This is with respect to students of any grade 4 through 12, teach, use, or provide any curriculum or instructional materials on sexual orientation, gender identity, or in a manner that is not age appropriate or developmentally appropriate for students in accordance with the state standards. So the second part of this is just saying, look, it is illegal to teach any of this sexual type material to kids until they are until it's age appropriate or developmentally appropriate for students in accordance with state standards. I've spoken to a couple of teachers, and that's already part of the law. Like, you're not supposed to be teaching kids things that are not appropriate for their age. It's should be a simple thing, right? Now I've got a picture here. I'm going to do this. I've got this picture, and this is going to be mildly offensive to some people. I'm going to warn you that I had to censor this picture. When I downloaded it, it was not censored. So there's some black boxes on there. Those were put on by me. The stuff that is behind the black box was not. This is the reason that these bills came about, is because in 2020 and 2021, when a lot of students were home on remote learning, their parents would walk by their computer while they were at school and look down, and they were startled with what they saw. Some of the images that was being shown to children who the parents did not believe was age appropriate might shock people. So this is some of the stuff that was being taught in public schools. This is the kind of stuff that has parents upset that their children were being shown images like this, and these were not censored images. We need to remember that this is the kind of stuff that's got people upset. They're not. I don't know. I'm gonna make that go away. These bills are not discriminatory in nature. These bills are not set out to target anybody of any particular culture, race, identity, whatever. These bills are meant as a kind of a safeguard, that a lot of this kind of stuff is stuff that should be taught to children by their parents. It should not be taught in schools. More importantly, it's a regulation that actually stops an agent from the government from teaching something to a child that the parent should be responsible for teaching. And I want to take this a step further. If you read the language, it says, with respect to a student of any grades kindergarten through 3, teach, use, or provide any curriculum or instructional material on sexual orientation or sexual identity. This kind of protection works both ways, because these are things that parents should be teaching their children. So let's imagine for a moment that you have a couple, and both these people are trans. You have someone who was born a man has transitioned to a woman. Someone that was born a woman has transitioned to a man. They either had a child together before they had their sex reassignment surgeries, or they adopted a child. So you got two people who are both trans. They both changed their sexual identity as adults, whatever. And they have a child, and that child is going to school. Let's say that child is going to school and their teacher is a Westboro Baptist cult member. And that teacher starts telling this child that this child's parents are both going to burn in hell because they have sinned and all this other kind of stuff. Because the teacher doesn't subscribe to the sexual orientation or gender identity beliefs that the parents have. So that would be a case where this law would actually protect people from the LGBTQIA plus community rather than be used to discriminate against them. That's one point that I do not hear people talking about. And it frustrates me when the place we've become, or the place we've gotten to in our country, where everything is so hyperbolic and so partisan that when one group introduces a bill designed to create a certain outcome or create a certain environment, if the other group opposes it, they can't just say, hey, I don't like that. I don't think that's a good idea. They have to come out and make these like extreme statements about it, saying that you're encouraging hate and you're encouraging discrimination and all this other stuff. The only thing talk like that is doing is it's creating a further divide in our country. And in the end, there's nobody that's going to benefit from that. there might be some people who see a short-term benefit. They see a short-term gain in their power and their ability to influence the world around them. Unfortunately, that's going to be short-lived because they're creating a world that's so divisive that it's only a matter of time before the mob that they've created turns on them as well. And we're starting to see that in many, many cases. I'm not going to go into that for the purposes of this video. But I just wanted to say that this bill, House Bill 616, it's a bill that prevents sex education from being taught to children 3rd grades and below. I don't think that's an extreme thing. And it also says that for kids that are 4th grade and older, you can teach them a variety of sexual education topics, but they have to be age and developmentally appropriate. That is what the bill actually says. People are not being honest about what's going on in our schools, and that needs to change. In this hyperbolic, hyper-partisan environment, that also needs to stop. So those are going to be my thoughts for today. Thank you for watching. I'll talk to you soon.